Love it, man. Nathan, it's wonderful to meet you, sir. Thank you for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
No worries, my pleasure.
So, before we get into your work, I want to know this. 5 years ago, this pandemic totally changed our lives globally. How
Yeah.
did you get through that pandemic era, and how has it affected the way that you live life now in 2025?
Well, got a unique perspective on it, I guess. Obviously when it happened, it was like, oh, I saw like the news and in the hospitals and all these issues that are going on. But I thought very quickly. I think within 7 to 10 days, maybe less, I was like, something doesn't smell right. I never believed it. I still don't believe it. Um, or in to the degrees of what it was propagated, shall we say.
Yeah.
But I do believe that it was part of it was put in place for the transformation of society. Because we're coming out of one existing political and financial system and potentially going into a new one. We are coming towards the end of a financial system which began back in 1913, the creation of the Federal Reserve. And I believe we're now coming towards the end of that. And I think that fundamentally means the world is going to change. Um, with the introduction of this new uh, internet of value, so to speak, and artificial intelligence. So I think the last 5 years, if ever anything, is me building my business to prep for the future based on the changes that have occurred since then and are to dramatically occur more in the next 5 years.
So, if to get a handle on what you do in your business model on a daily basis, I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of 12-year-olds at career day. And the
Yeah,
kid in the back of the room that's curious is like, hey, what do you do for a living? How do you
yeah.
answer them?
Well, I mean, I'm talking to a 12-year-old, so I'm the CEO, but I mean, what a CEO really is. But basically, I'm building a social commerce application. So imagine TikTok and Amazon type products together, but in a way where we build a new financial ecosystem that puts the people first, not the existing advertising models, which just benefits the corporations.
So, what did you want to be at 12 years old? What was your dream job?
I want to be at 12 years old. I don't know really. I think I'd probably want to be a footballer, but I was
Yeah.
never good enough. Soccer player, you would call it. But yeah, yeah, I've had so many jobs throughout the year. I was in fitness and I was in technology, then I was in finance for the decade, and now back in technology, social media stuff as well. So I mean, I've kind of had I've done quite a lot of things, traveled the world a lot, had a lot of experiences. I think the main thing is for me, I never give up, and I'm not fearful of anything. So because of that, I take more risks, and sometimes that works out well, sometimes it doesn't work out so well. But in some capacity, whenever you take risks, whether it comes off well or not well, you learn, and that's been a kind of feature of my life from 12 years to now and 40 coming up next month.
So, take me back to where you were born and raised, and what were the foundational elements of your life from your family and growing up that gave you this fearlessness, this entrepreneurial spirit, and to travel, and all of these elements that are you? How did that happen?
Um, well, I think at foundation when I was a child, I got bullied a lot. So I mean, I was really, really badly bullied. And I had a very strict father who was in, an army kind of type guy. So my mum was in army as well. So I had a strict upbringing with a strict father and being bullied the whole time. I think I was taught to be, I think maybe I rebelled against the idea of discipline because of that. And I think there was also an element of searching for validation for a long time. I think in the beginning, it starts as validation. Um, but as you evolve, it becomes more than that because when you become conscious of the journey that took you to there, it then becomes about purpose because you needed to go through those steps down that route to be put in the place you are now, right? I think the key turning point over the period of time leading up to it is when getting to that point where you really don't care about the way others think. And that took me quite a long time to do that because I was always searching for that validation because of when I was younger. I didn't feel I guess I didn't feel adequate. I was always a people pleaser. But being that people pleaser meant that I was, a nice guy, so to speak. As I was a nice guy, I was fearless. I always wanted to be the best. But now, nice guy just part of my personality. But I don't let people walk all over me. Be the best. I don't really like the idea of be the best anymore. Usually, it's not about being the best at something, being winning or losing, but actually, if you want to learn more within your consciousness, you take more actions, and by taking more actions, you might to make that call that be the best. So I have a different outlook and an evolved level of consciousness based on the decisions and choices that I made through that own evolution of my understanding, going through my teens, 20s, and even into my, mid 30s, I would say it's only the last 5 years. I mean, this last 7 years is to a certain degree, but I mean, the last 3 or 4 years have been, really exponential growth in consciousness.
So, who's been that hero for you, that inspirational force that's allowed you to evolve to this point in life?
My true self.
Yeah.
That's all I've realized is that we we we're all we're all brought up in different parts of the world. If I was Nathan and I was born in South Korea or I was born in Bangladesh, I wouldn't be the same Nathan, right? You wouldn't be the same Joe if you were brought up in San Francisco even, or Hawaii, or Japan, or wherever.
Yeah.
So essentially, it's the created avatar that we create based on the experiences we have. But there is something God-given, divine inside of us, which is, I think, what our consciousness connects to a higher level, where it's something that comes from the divine, something, however you want to express God. I express it as energy, but a higher power. And there's something within us. And I think the society that we create and the society that we've created actually is strangely been built to keep us as far away from understanding our true self as possible. And that's becoming more and more prevalent with the where society is now. There is an active effort to ensure that everyone is dumbed down and that their levels of consciousness are suppressed, whether that be through getting them to look one way when something's actually true, where that's making them not believe in God or the divine, whether that is what science is or what science isn't, whether the science is actually what a corporation says or not what the actual truth is.
Yeah.
It's all built to this existing financial system which was to benefit the people with the money, and that's actually linked to what we've become as our consciousness, because it's shaped our outer personalities and took us further away from our inner ones. All that happens, I think, particularly over the last 5 years, we've become more conscious to look inside ourselves. Well, that I have for me at least. And then when you realize that, you realize that you don't need to look outside for anything. I'm not interested in the Lamborghinis, the Ferraris, the private jets. I'm not interested in anything. All up because I know I can find much more. I'm much more excited, much more curious about what I can find inside myself. Perhaps, we all do have superpowers. We just don't know it, right?
Yeah.
Now I look at it like that, and I understand how the world works. I understand the reasoning why it happens. But the main point is I've got to a point in consciousness where I have the courage to just always live by my truth. And when you have the consciousness to live by your truth, you have understanding for the way the world works. When you have understanding for the way the world works, you can reason with why people take actions, why they don't take actions,
Mm.
and the reasons why they occur. I don't think there's any bad person in the world. I just think every person's born into a certain state of consciousness. And if people are born into a certain state of consciousness which have too much power, that can bring the effect onto humanity negatively, that's what will happen. And I think that's what's happened. That people that control the money supply are not living from a place of courage and not living from a place of truth. And then that filters down to politics. There's so many politicians out there that know they've done wrong, but they don't have the courage to turn around and go, I did wrong, because of the fear of the response that they're going to get from the public. Whereas if we raise our consciousness to a point of understanding why everyone takes those decisions, we therefore can have an understanding amongst one another why that has occurred. I'm not, you shouldn't let people off, so to speak, but like the book teaches forgiveness, right? And
Yep.
that's the foundation of it. And that comes through the consciousness of understanding why everyone takes actions. But the problem is the world is currently controlled by people that live below that state of courage. So therefore, the way I look at it is courage is the difference between truth and lies. And courage comes from a place of love, and anything from that comes from, genuine who we are as whatever's inside us as human beings. But below that courage comes from a place of lies, and therefore comes from a place of fear. Every layer below that comes from a place of fear. So there's a large proportion of the world that live in a state of fear due to what's going on and the financial system that we currently live in, which means it suppresses the entire collective consciousness of humanity. It means collectively, as a unit, we fight amongst one another, rather than collectively understand that none of that matters and
Yep.
that we can love one another. And I'm not saying love as in I love you. I'm talking
Yeah.
about love as just unconditional, like an understanding for everyone. Like we live in this world, even real simple ones, which makes you think about, like, if you have children, you love those children, right?
Yep.
But shouldn't you love every child just to the same amount you love your own child?
Right.
You should. Well,
Yeah.
what's
Sure.
different? Oh, because yeah, I'm sure you have an emotional connection to them because they're built within your where you've grown up. But again, that links to your outside avatar, not your inside one, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because your inside one would love everyone the same.
Yep. Yep.
But we live in this world that doesn't do that. But once you go through those layers of consciousness to understand that's the way the world works, you can then you can then implement that into your life and the choices that you are, whether that's, where you are on your spiritual journey, where you are on your business journey, where you are with your purpose. And for me, that all links together now. My job, my business, my purpose, my spiritual growth, they all intertwine into one another.
So, as a CEO and an entrepreneur, there's a level of risk, and you obviously have talked about the fearlessness. What is the biggest risk that you've taken as not only a professional, but as a human being?
The biggest risk I've taken is probably the procrastinating over not doing things rather than doing things, because when, there's this illusion about risk, because the illusion of risk is that, oh, you're scared, you're fearful of losing something. I'm not fearful of losing anything.
Yeah.
Like, look, like, I have an understanding now of, I obviously would like to be in a position where I'm not controlled, and unfortunately finance in this world means that you are controlled if you have a limited amount of it. I understand that. But I think when you get to a point of understanding and the belief that, you can manifest money into your life. And I'm not saying like I'm just going to pluck it out of thin air. It's like, no, well, I have a set of skills. I have an understanding of the way the world works. So it means if something goes wrong, I'll get it back. It's not a big deal. So I think the only thing that would ever hold me back is procrastinating on taking action rather than not. I mean, the whole state of fear and where you feel that anxiety actually comes from a lack of action, not the action itself.
Yeah. Yeah. So, let me ask you this. If you could meet one person on the planet right now that you find fascinating, an entrepreneur, a mind, just a fascinating human being that might help you on your journey, is there anybody you would love to meet and talk to?
Mm, I like Candace Owens.
Okay.
I don't. I'm not saying there's no one that jumps out at me,
Yeah.
but I like how I get. I have a feeling that when she speaks from a place of authenticity and truth, and
Yeah.
I like that. And yeah, I'm sure there's lots. There's many out there, but I just think in this world where money and agenda is at the forefront of everything, I just get the attitude that she doesn't care about that.
Yeah.
She cares about truth. And I like that because, only when we all collectively get to a point of putting truth first and having the confidence to put truth first, will we actually raise our collective consciousness as a group of individuals over time. Um, I mean, I'm sure there's a few more that I can think of which would be interesting, but I mean, she stands out as one that I like. Yeah, everything from her comes from a place of truth, I believe.
Yeah,
So I might be wrong, but
yeah,
that's the way it seems. But as a individual, I don't really look out for individuals per se, because I just have an understanding that you probably sometimes learn from, the guy in the village in, I went to Vietnam, I went to these mountains and village, and you learn from people there, or that you wouldn't ever think of. I think we put too much of an emphasis on fame because someone's a famous person, that they have wise knowledge that we otherwise wouldn't know. But actually, I think quite often you'll find it in the places where you wouldn't look.
yeah,
And they might be slightly different pieces of information that you have to decrypt yourself that you wouldn't otherwise thought of. But I think searching in places where they're quite often when you that people are less in this world that we live in, this westernized world, because we become a certain type of person by being in this westernized financial system. If you go into places where there's less control of that, you actually tend to find people are closer to their true selves. And if they're closer to their true selves, um, you know, they they might aid you in your guiding you to finding you being closer to your true self as well. Whereas finding it in amongst the city of the hectic, uh, consumer-driven society that we've created is it's quite difficult, I think. I think, that you can take something from everywhere,
yeah.
and something from everyone. But I think perhaps finding you'll find more from the farmer in the middle of nowhere than you would from the person that's the CEO of the company sometimes.
Yeah, I totally agree. So let me ask you this. If you were to have a dream tonight, you ran into the 18-year-old version of you ready to go out into the world, and you could give that version of you a piece of advice based on this life you've led, the wisdom you've gained, what advice would you give? Or would you give any advice to that version of you?
I mean, I'm always one for like, I like to talk and I like to have intellectual conversations which point people in the right directions. Um, and I would probably give you my 2 cents, which would be to um, not don't worry about the way other people think because it's not worth doing. If I had understood that at a much younger age, I would be far further ahead because just with that one point, you end up moving away from your true self to either put yourself in a fear state or to take actions for others rather than your actual true self. Um, but on the flip side, I think everyone has their own journey, right? So um, I think I wouldn't want to change the journey that I've had because I think the difficulty, the struggles, the way I've gone about it has given me a very unique perspective on life and on the world, and has got me to a point of perhaps seeing things that the majority of the world haven't seen, but yet found a way to connect the dots to raise my consciousness to bring myself closer to who I truly am. So, whilst taking that information and understanding how the world works on one side, getting my consciousness to a level to now be able to utilize everything I learn for my own higher purpose, so to speak. So, I don't think I would change anything. I wouldn't want to redivert the choices I've made.
Sure. So let me ask you this. As somebody that's seen a lot of this globe, what is one of the most unexpectedly magical places that you've been to?
Yen Mountain in Vietnam.
I've heard Vietnam before. I've heard that a lot.
Yen Mountain. Um, and I would go there again and I would stay there again. It was the most amazing, like peaceful, magical place. Like it's amongst nature. You're seeing butterflies. When do you ever go out and see butterflies
Yeah.
flying around everywhere and all these colorful insects? And there was horses roaming around, and you're going through streams, and you can climb up a mountain. There's a cable car that takes you up to a mountain, and there's temples, and you can touch trees that are 1,000 years old, and touch them and feel an energy come through them. I mean, I would go this. I went there this year. There's one place that's just, I mean, I just felt at peace. Like
Yeah.
it's just such a peaceful place.
Yeah.
You don't require anything. You don't feel like you need to eat. You don't feel like you need to consume. You're just one with yourself. Um, and yeah, that was a great place. I mean, I would say there is the what I would recommend going.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, of everything that you've done in your life up to this point and evolved to and accomplished, what are you ultimately the proudest of?
I'm proud that I continue to follow my truth, despite it causing me more difficulty more often than not. But I've come to learn that it's short-term difficulty for long-term. I wouldn't say the words gain. I would say long-term understanding
Yeah.
and evolution of consciousness. Um, don't don't take the quick fixes, the easy routes out if it's not aligned with your truth, because it'll come back to bite you later.
So, of all of these places that you've been to, all of these cultures you've been immersed in, do you
Mhm.
remain hopeful for humanity?
Good question. There was an event yesterday that's potentially pivotal, right?
Yeah.
Um, I think humanity's awakening to a different level of consciousness because an end of a system is coming. And there is a gap in this period of time where, if collectively we come together through our truth, I believe humanity could be moving in a much more positive direction. However, if we don't, and we don't rise up to the lies, and that means generally just being, if we continue to be fearful, we will not evolve.
Yep.
And therefore, people that are less evolved, that operate from lower states of consciousness themselves, will continue to control humanity through existing systems, actually far worse than the ones we have now, to a level where there could be totalitarian control of society. And that, however, only occurs if we don't, if we choose to put our heads down, dig in the sand, and be fearful of 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 losing things. I mean, the problem is the consumer-driven society means that you're worried about paying your mortgage and paying your bills, and and that, that means that you don't align yourself with your truth because you follow orders almost. I mean, a good example is in the UK right now. You see police officers like arresting grandmothers for protesting for people in Palestine or something, like 80 or like a blind man or something. These police are arresting them because they class it as political. Those police would never a million years, if they were living from a place of truth, be arresting those people. But they're doing it because out of fear of, oh, I've got to pay the bills. No, you don't have to pay the bills. Oh, I've got to keep my home to look after my kids. No, you don't. I mean, yes, I understand why you think that, but unfortunately, to break down an existing system that's created, there's going to be a certain time of difficulty and struggle in some capacity. But by doing so, we have the opportunity to rebuild the society in a positive manner. And that links back to exactly the point that I just said a minute ago. Don't take the quick, easy route
Yep.
if it's not in alignment with your truth.
Yeah.
Um, so I think, yesterday's example is a prime example of someone that chose to follow his truth, um, not fearfully, not from a place of fear, but from a place of his beliefs. Um, and I think that now that I think that's what has to be promoted, not the division
Yeah.
of what's going to come or
Yeah.
already is there. It has to be, look, there's everyone's got different views on the world, but live from a place of truth, not
Yeah.
from a place of fear. And I think that has to be the message. And if that is the message, I think we're in this time in history where we can actually create a better world, because the illusion of what was there before is no longer an illusion.
Yeah.
I think before we thought we were living from a place of truth, but we were no wiser. The awakening of consciousness is happened because of the breakdown of that illusion. And then, and now you have a choice to ignore what you truly know, but through fear, or hold on to your truth. And if as a collective we do that, then the power structures that were already in place, which are obviously now for the negative, because we're coming to the end of a system where greed and power at the forefront in with these small amount of people in the world, we have the ability to change that. But to do so, you have to live from a place of truth
Yeah.
and be not scared of the short-term pain that might be there, but on the basis of the long-term gain, the betterment of humanity will be there. I think, look, you look at someone like Nelson Mandela. He's in prison for 35 years, and look what he did
Yep.
at the end of it. Look what come out of that at the end of it. That's a prime example. He wasn't fearful. I mean, I don't know the ins and outs of how it actually occurred to him to go into prison, but the point of it is that he wasn't fearful for his actions, and then he rose up to change things for the better. I mean, that's a prime example. But we're not in a time where one person's going to change everything.
Right.
We have to, as a collective, we have to all be in a place of coming from our truth.
I totally agree. So let me ask you this. Everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, everyone that you work with, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Um, do you know that hexagon shape?
Yeah.
Like all those hexagons connect to the flower of life,
Uh-huh.
right? We're all interconnected, and I am just one of those little hexagons.
I dig it.
You are one of those hexagons. Your wife is one of those hexagons. The guy in India is one of those hexagons. 8 billion people who are hexagons, as well as all the animals, all everything. We're all connected. We're all something. We're all connected together. But the society we created means that we're fractured.
Yeah.
So I am just simply one piece of the puzzle that has a level of consciousness to put my role forward. I am no better or worse than anyone. I just have a role to play, and if everyone stands up to their role, I think those hexagons come closer together. We
Yeah.
create the equilibrium of what the world should actually be.
What a beautiful answer. So if anyone wants to reach out, they want to learn more about your business, what you're doing, any of the good business, where do they go?
Clipsi.app, CLIPSI.app. We are working mainly in Southeast Asia at the moment, so we're going to be much bigger, much larger in the Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam, Thailand. Those are the countries we're kind of be working on the first few months of the back end of this year and the start of next year, but that will expand over time. No doubt, as we have to raise capital, there will be certain parts of the world where there's more capital. Europe, United States, perhaps that will be where we go eventually. But in the beginning, we're focused on Southeast Asia.
Okay. Nathan, this has been fascinating. Thank you, sir. Happy travels. Keep making the world a beautiful place. I love the way your mind works. Thank you.
Cheers, mate. I really appreciate it. Thank
Cheers.
you.
Take care.